E. I'll never forget the moment it all started. I thought I had everything figured out, that nothing could surprise me anymore. I was wrong. That night changed everything. It wasn't supposed to happen. Yet it did. You see, I'd always prided myself on being in control. I was confident, independent, and could hold my own in any situation. I never thought I'd fall for something, or someone I wasn't expecting. But then I met him. And everything I thought I knew about myself unraveled in an instant. It started as just another night out. I had no expectations, just a few drinks, maybe some casual conversation, and a quick escape when it was all over. I was at a high-end event, dressed to impress, surrounded by people who probably had more money than sense, but I wasn't there for any of them. I was there for me. Or so I thought. I didn't even notice him at first. He wasn't the type of man you immediately notice in a crowd of younger, flashier men. He didn't wear the latest designer suit, or have that quick, sharp smile that usually drew attention. But there was something about him, a certain presence, a quiet confidence that stood out even in the chaos of the room. I hadn't been looking for someone older. I wasn't one of those women who'd ever considered dating someone past their prime. But he had a certain magnetism that made it impossible to ignore. And before I knew it, he was standing next to me. His voice cut through the noise of the party, deep and calm. He was older, no question about it, with a face that spoke of years of experience. He had a look in his eyes that wasn't just about curiosity, it was something more. I felt it right away, like a charge in the air, a dangerous energy. "May I join you?" he asked, his words slow, deliberate. I hesitated for a moment. I was never the type to fall for older men, but there was something so captivating about him. Something that felt different from the usual flirtations I was used to. So I nodded, and he took a seat. As we talked, I couldn't help but notice how different he was from the men I usually spent time with. He wasn't trying to impress me with flashy stories or big talk. Instead, he spoke with quiet authority. His words laced with a depth I didn't realize I was craving. His experiences were real, raw, and nothing like the superficial conversations I'd grown so accustomed to. With every word, he pulled me in a little deeper. I couldn't help but feel like there was something more to this conversation than just small talk. It wasn't just the usual pleasantries. It was an invitation. An invitation into a world I didn't know existed. And then, without warning, the conversation shifted. "I can tell you're intrigued," he said, his voice low, almost as if he were reading my thoughts. I froze. He didn't just notice me, he understood me. There was no pretending with him, no games. He saw through me, into my very soul. And it was at that moment, with a wave of vulnerability crashing over me, that I realized something. This wasn't just a casual encounter. This wasn't just another conversation at a party. This was different. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I knew I couldn't walk away from it now. As the night wore on, we left the party together. Neither of us spoke about what was happening. But the tension between us was undeniable. I didn't know where this was going, or even if it was a good idea. But I knew one thing for sure. There was something about him. Something that I couldn't walk away from. We arrived at his place, and everything felt surreal. His home was nothing like the places I was used to. It wasn't just expensive. It was elegant, timeless. Every piece of furniture seemed to tell a story. Every book on the shelf was a testament to the life he had lived. It was intimidating, beautiful, and completely foreign to me. He didn't rush me. There was no pressure, no urgency. Everything about him felt calculated, yet effortless. It was as if he was offering me the world, but in a way that didn't feel like a transaction. It was strange. Unsettling, yet strangely comforting. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but once we kissed, everything changed. It wasn't like any kiss I'd ever experienced. There was a depth to it, a slow burn that grew with every second. His touch was gentle but commanding, making me feel both fragile and powerful at the same time. I didn't know if I was making the right decision, but I couldn't stop. Every inch of my body was telling me to move closer, to give in to the pull between us. And I did. The night didn't end with just one kiss. We spent hours together, talking, laughing, and exploring each other in ways I had never imagined. But it wasn't just physical. There was an emotional connection, too. A bond that was formed in a way I didn't expect, but couldn't ignore. I had always been so careful about who I let into my life. I didn't trust easily, but with him, something was different. The way he spoke to me, the way he made me feel like I mattered, it was intoxicating. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. But when I woke up the next morning, I was alone. There was no note, no explanation. Just an empty space beside me. For a moment, panic set in. Had it all been a dream? Had he just used me for one night like so many others? But then I found the note. It was simple, but it spoke volumes. Sometimes the most beautiful connections are the ones that never have a name. I didn't know what to think. Was this a one-time thing? Or was I part of something deeper? Something I hadn't fully understood? I tried to move on, I tried to forget it, but every time I thought of him, I felt a pull, a yearning that I couldn't shake. What was it about him? What was it about that night that had left such a mark on me? I never saw him again. Maybe that was for the best. But I couldn't deny that I had learned something that night. Something about myself. And about what I truly wanted. What happened between us wasn't just an affair or a fling. It was a glimpse into a world I never knew existed. A world where connections ran deeper than surface-level attraction. Where experiences were shared and cherished. Where age wasn't a barrier, but a doorway.